Tonight, you're not a king, a knight, or a nobleman. You're an ordinary person in medieval Europe. You wake up cold, on a thin layer of straw, in a dark, damp room that smells like rot. There's no clean water, no real medicine, and almost everything around you can make you sick. And before this day is over, there's a very real chance you don't survive it. So close your eyes, get comfortable, and let's see how long you'd actually last. And if you end up enjoying these quiet history stories, you can always like and subscribe for more. But for now, let's get back to your first day in medieval life.
The first sensation is cold. Not the mild discomfort of a thermostat set too low, but a profound, bone-penetrating cold that seems to radiate from the earth itself, seeping through layers of rough fabric and into your very marrow. Your eyes open to grey half-light filtering through gaps in a thatched roof above, each beam of pre-dawn illumination revealing dancing motes of dust, chaff, and things you'd rather not identify. The darkness is not the complete blackness of a modern bedroom with blackout curtains, but rather a murky gloom that never fully lifts, even in daylight, within these earthen walls. Your modern mind, still clutching at the familiar, expects the soft embrace of memory foam, the gentle hum of climate control, perhaps the distant sound of traffic or a neighbor's television through well-insulated walls. Instead, you lie upon a thin layer of straw that has long since compressed into a mat barely thicker than the dirt, rough woolen fabric that serves as your mattress covering, each stem a tiny lance against your skin. You shift slightly, and the movement releases a fresh wave of odor from the bedding, the accumulated smell of months, perhaps years, of human occupation without washing, without changing, without any of the basic hygiene you've known since birth. The stench hits you then, fully and completely, as your olfactory senses finish their transition from sleep to waking. It is not one smell but a symphony of assault, each note more disturbing than the last. The sharp, acrid tang of urine, both human and animal, mingles with the earthier, heavier smell of feces. There is no bathroom here, no porcelain throne connected to miles of sanitary sewers. The night bucket sits in the corner, its contents adding to the miasma that permeates every surface, every fiber, every breath. Beneath that immediate assault lies the deeper, more insidious smell of rot. The straw bedding, never fully dry in this damp climate, harbors mold and mildew. Food scraps from meals past have been ground into the earthen floor, decomposing slowly in the cold. The thatch above, meant to keep out rain, instead traps moisture and provides perfect breeding grounds for fungi and decay. And threading through it all is the smell of unwashed human bodies, not the mild scent of someone who skipped a morning shower, but the profound odor of people who have never known soap, who wash rarely and incompletely in cold water, whose clothes are worn day and night until they literally fall apart. You try to sit up and your body protests immediately. The thin woolen blanket that covered you during the night, more of a rough cloth than anything resembling modern bedding, falls away and the cold intensifies. Your breath mists in the air before your face. It is late autumn, perhaps early winter, and there is no heat in this hovel beyond the residual warmth of bodies huddled together. The fire that burned in the central hearth last night has long since died to cold ash, and no one will relight it until the evening meal requires cooking. Fuel is too precious to waste on, comfort. As you shift position, you feel something moving in your hair. Your hand rises automatically to scratch, and your fingers encounter not just one but many small bodies scurrying across your scalp. Lice. Head lice, body lice, perhaps even pubic lice. The medieval world is their paradise, and you are now their host. They've been feeding on you throughout the night, leaving behind tiny wounds. You want to recoil, to leap up and shower, to wash them away with hot water and medicated shampoo. But there is no shower. There is no hot water. There is no shampoo, medicated or otherwise. The lice are your companions now, as they are companions to every person in this village, from the lowest peasant to the lord in his manor. Your eyes adjust further to the gloom, and you begin to distinguish shapes in the single-room dwelling. Other bodies lying nearby on similar straw pallets, a family of peasants who have taken you in, though whether from charity or obligation, you cannot say. They sleep huddled together for warmth, their breathing creating small clouds in the frigid air. A man, a woman, 3 children of indeterminate age. Malnutrition has stunted their growth, making it impossible to guess whether they are 6 or 10, 8 or 12. They wear the same clothes they worked in yesterday, the same clothes they'll work in tomorrow, the same clothes they'll wear until the fabric disintegrates. Movement catches your eye near the wall, and you realize you're not alone in wakefulness. Rats. Several of them, bold and unafraid, moving along the base of the wall where the earthen floor meets the wattle and daub construction. They're searching for food scraps, and they've learned that humans in sleep pose no threat. One pauses to groom itself not 3 feet from your head, its whiskers twitching as it surveys its domain. These are not the small, timid mice that might occasionally venture into a modern home. These are substantial creatures, well fed on grain stores and garbage, carrying fleas that carry plague, though you won't know about that connection for several more centuries of scientific discovery. You need to urinate. The urge has been building as you wake, and now it demands attention. In your previous life, the life that ended when you somehow arrived in this nightmare, you would simply pad to a bathroom, flip a light switch, and relieve yourself in clean porcelain, with fresh water standing ready to wash away all evidence. Here, your options are limited and unpleasant. The night bucket in the corner is communal, used by all 6 people in this dwelling. It has not been emptied since yesterday morning, and it will not be emptied until someone carries it out to dump in the midden heap behind the cottage. There is no privacy, no door to close, no fan to mask sounds or smells. You rise slowly, every muscle protesting. Your modern body, accustomed to support to a thin layer of compressed vegetation over hard-packed earth. Your spine feels compressed, your hips ache, your shoulders are stiff. The cold has settled into your joints, making movement painful. You're wearing the rough woolen tunic and hose that serve as peasant clothing, garments that itch against your skin, that provide minimal insulation, that chafe at every movement. Your feet are wrapped in cloth strips inside leather shoes that are more holes than substance, offering almost no protection from the cold earth floor. As you shuffle toward the bucket, you become aware of other discomforts competing for attention. Your mouth tastes foul, coated with the residue of yesterday's meal and the bacterial growth of a night without brushing. Your teeth feel fuzzy, and your gums are tender, the beginning of the periodontal disease that affects nearly everyone in this era. Your stomach gurgles ominously, still processing the questionable food you consumed yesterday, already beginning the rebellion that will soon become full-blown dysentery. Your skin itches everywhere, not just from the lice, but from the general filth, from the rough fabric, from the bites of fleas and bedbugs that share your sleeping space. You reach the bucket and squat over it, trying not to breathe too deeply, trying not to think about the fact that this same vessel-lid. There is no toilet paper, of course. That luxury is centuries away. Instead, there are rough cloth rags that are used and reused, washed, occasionally in cold water, shared among the household. The concept makes your modern sensibilities recoil, but there is no alternative. This is simply how humans have lived for thousands of years, and how they will continue to live for centuries more. As you finish and return to your pallet, the sky visible through the gaps in the thatch has lightened slightly. Dawn is coming, which means the workday is coming, which means you will soon be expected to rise and labor, despite having no idea how to perform the tasks required of you. Your hands, soft from a lifetime of keyboard work and smartphone screens, are already showing signs of damage from yesterday's brief exposure to medieval labor. Small cuts and abrasions mark your palms and fingers, and you can feel the beginning of blisters where you gripped unfamiliar tools. In your old life, such minor injuries would be treated with antibiotic ointment and bandages, kept clean and dry until they healed. Here, they will be exposed to dirt, manure, and countless pathogens as you work, and your immune system, evolved for a sanitized world, will struggle to prevent infection. You lie back down, pulling the thin rod beneath you rustles, and you feel something small and many-legged scurrying away from your weight. The bedding is alive with insects, not just lice, but fleas, bedbugs, and various other parasites that thrive in the unwashed fabric and organic material. They will feed on you throughout the day and night, leaving behind itching welts and, more dangerously, potentially, transmitting diseases that your body has no defenses against. The reality of your situation begins to settle over you like a suffocating blanket. There is no going back. No rescue is coming. No one is going to arrive with antibiotics, clean water, and a warm bed. You are trapped in a time and place where human life is brutal, short, and filled with suffering that your modern mind can barely comprehend. The average life expectancy here is perhaps 35 years, and that's if you survive childhood diseases, if you avoid injury and infection, if you don't starve during a bad harvest, if you aren't killed by violence or executed for some minor transgression against the rigid social order. Your stomach cramps suddenly, a sharp pain that doubles you over. The water you drank yesterday, drawn from a well that also receives runoff from the midden heap and animal pens, is already wreaking havoc on your digestive system. Your modern gut, accustomed to chlorides and other pathogens that medieval people developed tolerance to through constant exposure. You will have dysentery within hours, losing precious fluids and nutrients that you cannot easily replace. The food available to you, coarse bread, thin pottage, occasional vegetables, lacks the nutritional density and variety your body needs. You will be simultaneously overfed on starches and undernourished in vitamins and proteins. The man of the household stirs, coughing a deep, wet cough that speaks of chronic respiratory problems, The air quality in this dwelling is atrocious. When the fire burns, it fills the single room with smoke that has no proper outlet, coating the walls and ceiling with black soot, irritating lungs and eyes. When the fire is out, the damp cold encourages mold growth. Everyone here likely suffers from some degree of respiratory disease, their lungs scarred and weakened by years of breathing this toxic air. You've been here less than a day, and already you can feel the irritation in your throat and chest. The man rises, moving stiffly in the cold, and begins the morning routine. He doesn't acknowledge you. Peasants have learned not to waste energy on unnecessary social niceties. He shuffles it. A blast of frigid air sweeps through the room, and you can see your breath even more clearly. Outside, the world is grey and bleak. Mud. Bare trees. Other hovels similar to this one, clustered together in what passes for a village. No paved roads, no street lights, no power lines or telephone poles. Just mud, wood, stone, and the endless struggle to survive. The woman wakes next, then the children, each rising with the resigned movements of people who know that comfort is not an option, that the day ahead will be filled with cold, hunger, and hard labor. They don't complain. Complaining changes nothing. They simply begin the tasks that must be done to survive another day. The woman moves to the hearth and begins the laborious process of rekindling the fire, using precious tinder and blowing carefully on the embers she's preserved from yesterday. Fire starting is a skill you don't possess, another gap in your knowledge that marks you as useless in this world. You sit up again, knowing you must rise, must attempt to participate in the morning routine, must try to justify your presence in this household. Your body protests every movement. The cold has stiffened your muscles, thenes, and discomforts compete for your attention. Your modern body, soft and weak from a life of climate control and sedentary work, is utterly unprepared for the physical demands of medieval peasant life. You've never done manual labor for 12 hours a day. You've never gone without adequate food, heat, or medical care. You've never had to simply endure suffering because there is no alternative, no relief, no escape. The fire catches, and thin smoke begins to fill the room. Your eyes water immediately. The woman hangs a pot over the flames, the same pot used for every meal, never properly cleaned, encrusted with the residue of countless previous cookings. She adds water from a bucket, the same water source that's making you sick, and begins preparing the morning pottage. Oats, if they have them. Barley. Perhaps some dried peas or beans. Whatever vegetables have been stored from the harvest. All of it boiled together into a thick, greyish porridge that will be your breakfast, your fuel for the day's labor. You watch the preparations with a growing sense of dread. You will have to eat this food. You will have to drink this water. You will have to work in the fields, handle tools you don't know down, your immune system overwhelmed, your soft modern flesh yielding to the harsh realities of medieval life. The infections will spread. The dysentery will worsen. The cold will penetrate deeper. And there will be no help, no medicine, no comfort beyond what these peasants can offer, which is to say, almost nothing. The grey light continues to strengthen, revealing more details of your prison. The walls are wattle and daub, woven sticks plastered with a mixture of mud, straw, and animal dung. They provide minimal insulation and are slowly crumbling, requiring constant maintenance. The floor is simply packed earth, impossible to keep clean, harboring countless parasites and pathogens. The few possessions the family owns are crude and worn. Wooden, bowls, a few tools, some extra clothing that's more patches than original fabric. There is no furniture beyond the sleeping pallets. No chairs, no tables, no storage beyond a few rough shelves. This is poverty beyond anything you've ever witnessed, and these people are not even the poorest. There are those worse off, the landless laborers, the beggars, the outcasts. Your stomach cramps again, more insistently this time. You recognize the sensation. Your modern digestive system, evolved for processed foods and clean water, is in full revolt against the medieval diet and sanitation. You will lose fluids you cannot easily replace. You will lose electrolytes your body desperately needs. And there is no Pedialyte, no IV fluids, no medical intervention of any kind. You will simply have to endure to hope your body can adapt, though you already know it cannot. The children are stirring now, scratching at lice bites, coughing in the smoky air, preparing for another day of labor. Even the youngest works. There is no childhood as you understand it, no school, no playtime, no protection from the harsh realities of survival. They will work until they're too exhausted to continue, eat whatever meager food is available, sleep in this fetid hovel, sleep in this fetid hovel, and repeat the cycle tomorrow and the next day and the day after that until disease, injury, or malnutrition claims them. This is the human condition for most of history, the reality that your comfortable modern life has shielded you from understanding. The pottage begins to bubble, and the smell of cooking grain mingles with all the other odors in the small space. Your stomach, despite its distress, responds to the scent of food. You're already hungry, your body burning through its reserves trying to maintain temperature, and eating will only worsen your digestive problems. That every bite is contaminated with bacteria your hard system cannot handle. Yet you must eat, must maintain some strength, must try to survive, even as you feel your body beginning its inevitable decline. This is your new reality, your new normal. The awakening is complete. You are fully, terribly aware of where you are and what awaits you. The comfortable illusions of modern life have been stripped away, leaving you naked before the brutal truth of human existence in the medieval world. And the day has only just begun. The wooden bowl placed before you contains what passes for breakfast in this medieval hovel. Pottage. The word itself sounds almost quaint, almost charming, like something from a children's fairy tale. The reality is far less enchanting. The thick, greyish porridge steams slightly in the cold air, its surface dotted with globules of fat from some unidentifiable source and flecks of what might be herbs or might be debris from the cooking pot. Your modern sensibilities, trained by food safety regulations and health department inspections, recoil at the sight. The family gathers around the central hearth, each member clutching their own bowl. Rough wooden vessels worn smooth by years of use, never properly sanitized, harboring bacteria in every crack and crevice. There are no spoons, no utensils of any kind. You will eat with your hands, scooping the hot pottage to your mouth with fingers that have not been properly washed, that are already showing signs of infection from yesterday's minor cuts and abrasions. Break time equals sign. 900, without any of the ritualistic acknowledgement of meals you might expect. Food is fuel, nothing more, and they consume it with the mechanical efficiency of people who have never known abundance. You lift the bowl to your lips, and the smell hits you first. It's not entirely unpleasant. There's the earthy scent of grain, something that might be onion or leek, a hint of wood smoke from the fire. But underneath lurks something else, something slightly off, the smell of ingredients that are not quite fresh, water that is not quite clean, a pot that has never been properly scoured. Your stomach, already in distress from yesterday's contaminated water, clenches in anticipation. Yet you must eat. The day's labor ahead will require energy you don't possess, and refusing food will only hasten your decline. The first mouthful is a revelation in texture and taste, and not in a positive way. The pottage is thick and gluey, coating your mouth with a starchy film. The grain barley, perhaps, or oats, has been cooked until it's broken down into a paste, but not cooked enough to eliminate the gritty texture of hulls and chaff that should have been removed during processing but weren't. You feel these hard particles grinding between your teeth, scraping against your gums, pleasant, with an underlying bitterness that might be from spoilage or simply from the poor quality of the ingredients. As you swallow, you feel something solid among the porridge, a small stone, perhaps, or a piece of grit that made its way into the grain during harvesting or storage. You try to spit it discreetly into your hand, but the peasant children watch you with expressions that mix curiosity and contempt. They've grown up eating such food, their bodies adapted to the constant low-level contamination, their expectations calibrated to a world where food purity is an impossible luxury. Your squeamishness marks you as foreign, as weak, as someone who doesn't belong in their harsh reality. You force yourself to continue eating, scooping the cooling pottage with your fingers, trying not to think about what might be in it. Medieval grain storage is imperfect at best. The barley or oats have likely been contaminated with mouse droppings, insect parts, mold spores, and the waste products of the weevils and other pests that infest every granary. The water used to cook it came from the village well, the same well that receives runoff from the midden heap, from the animal pens, from the cemetery where bodies are buried in shallow graves. Every mouthful is a calculated risk, a gamble that your immune system can handle the bacterial loaderized milk and irradiated meat and chlorinated water begins to rebel almost immediately. You feel the familiar cramping in your lower abdomen, the gurgling that signals your intestines' distress. The dysentery that began yesterday is worsening, your gut lining already inflamed and damaged, unable to properly absorb nutrients or water. Each swallow of pottage adds to the burden, introducing new pathogens that your body must attempt to fight off while already weakened and under siege. The woman of the household produces a loaf of bread, and your hopes lift momentarily. Surely bread will be better than the pottage, more familiar, more palatable. But as she breaks the loaf and passes portions around, you see that this is not the soft, fluffy bread of your previous life. This is maslin bread, made from a mixture of wheat and rye, and it's clear from its appearance that the flour was coarse ground, full of bran and grit. The crust is nearly black, rock hard, and when you try to bite into your portion, you feel your teeth protest at the effort required. The bread is stale, several days old at least, baked in large batches, because fuel for the oven is too precious to waste on daily. You must gnaw at it like a rodent, working your jaw until small pieces finally break free. As you chew, you feel the gritty texture of poorly milled flour, the sharp fragments of grain hulls cutting into your gums. Worse, you notice dark spots throughout the bread, mold. Not just surface mold that could be scraped away, but mold growing throughout the loaf, the spores having penetrated deep into the dense crumb during storage in the damp, poorly ventilated cottage. The peasants eat their moldy bread without hesitation, without even seeming to notice. They've eaten such bread their entire lives, their bodies somewhat adapted to the mycotoxins, their expectations so low that edible and safe are concepts that rarely overlap. You try to eat around the worst of the mold, but it's everywhere, and you're hungry enough that you force down several bites, despite your revulsion. The bread sits heavy in your stomach, a dense mass that your digestive system struggles to process, adding to the growing discomfort in your gut. With the bread comes water, ladled from a wooden bucket that sits near the hearth. The water is cloudy, with visible particles floating in it. Sediment from the well, perhaps, or organic matter from the bucket itself, which is never properly cleaned and introduces more pathogens into your system. But there is no alternative. There is no boiling water for safety. Fuel is too precious, and the concept of waterborne disease won't be understood for centuries. There is no wine or ale for you, as those precious commodities are reserved for those who contribute meaningfully to the household's survival. You drink, and the water tastes of earth and metal and something organic that you try not to identify. It's cold, at least, drawn fresh this morning from the well, but that's its only virtue. You feel it sliding down your throat into your stomach, where it will join the pottage and bread in the ongoing assault on your digestive system. Your body needs fluids desperately. The dysentery is dehydrating you, but every drink only worsens the underlying problem, introducing more of the bacteria and parasites that are causing your illness. The meal concludes quickly. There is no lingering over breakfast, no leisurely coffee and conversation. The peasants have work to do, and daylight is precious in these short autumn days. The woman begins clearing the bowls, and you watch as she wipes them out with a rag, not washing them, just wiping them, before stacking them on a rough shelf. The rag itself is grey with accumulated grime, stiff with dried, used for multiple purposes around the household. The concept of separate cleaning cloths for different tasks, of sanitizing surfaces, of basic hygiene protocols, simply doesn't exist here. Now comes the morning routine, such as it is. The man of the household moves to the water bucket, a different one from the drinking water, you hope, though you're not certain, and splashes his face and hands. The water in this bucket is murky, clearly having been used by multiple people already, possibly yesterday as well as this morning. A thin scum floats on its surface, and you can see particles of dirt and other substances suspended in the liquid. This is washing. This is the extent of morning hygiene in the medieval peasant world. You approach the bucket with dread, knowing you must participate in this ritual if you want to maintain even the pretense of fitting in. Your modern sensibilities scream that this water is filthy, that washing in it will only spread bacteria rather than remove it, that you're better off not washing at all. But the peasants are watching, and you're already suspect in their eyes, already marked as strange and useless. You dip your hands into the cold, fetid water and feel the slime some on your face, and the cry. Smell of it, stale and organic and wrong, fills your nostrils. There is no soap. Soap exists in this era, but it's a luxury item, expensive and rare, certainly not available to peasants who can barely afford salt. The water alone does nothing to remove the grime, the oils, the accumulated filth on your skin. If anything, you feel dirtier after washing than before, coated now with whatever contaminants were floating in the communal bucket. You look around desperately for something to dry yourself with, and the woman hands you a cloth, the same cloth she used to wipe the bowls. You realize with horror. It's damp and stiff and smells of mildew and old food. You pat your face and hands with the cloth, trying to use a clean corner, though there are no clean corners. Your skin feels tight and uncomfortable, coated with a film of whatever was in the water and on the cloth. Your hands, which showed the first signs of damage yesterday, are worse this morning. The small cuts have become inflamed, red and slightly swollen, the beginning of infection setting in. Your palms are tender, the blisters from yesterday's work now broken and weeping clear fluid. In your old life, you would apply antibiotic ointment, cover them with clean bandages, perhaps take a day off to let them heal. Here, you will work with these damaged hands, exposing them to dirt and manure and countless pathogens, and hope that your body can fight off the inevitable infections. Your mouth feels terrible, coated with the residue of the pottage and bread, your teeth gritty from the poorly milled flour. You long for a toothbrush, for toothpaste, for the simple ability to clean your teeth properly. But there is nothing. The peasants don't clean their teeth at all, and it shows. Even the young children have visible decay, their gums inflamed and receding. The adults have gaps where teeth have fallen out or been pulled, and those that remain are brown and worn down from the gritty bread and the habit of using teeth as tools. You run your tongue over your own teeth and feel the film of plaque already forming, the beginning of the decay that will claim them if you survive long enough. Your stomach cramps again, more urgently this time, and you know you need to relieve yourself. The night bucket has been emptied. You watched the man carry it out earlier, dumping its contents on a midden heap. But the thought of using it again, of squatting over that communal vessel in full view of the family, fills you with shame and revulsion. Yet it now, because your digestive system is giving you no choice. You move to the corner where the bucket sits, trying to position yourself to maintain some modicum of dignity, but it's impossible in the single-room dwelling. The peasants pay you no attention. They've long since lost any sense of shame about bodily functions, living as they do in such close quarters. You squat over the bucket, and your bowels release in a watery rush that confirms your worst fears. The dysentery is worsening, your intestines unable to absorb water, your body losing precious fluids that you cannot replace with the contaminated water available to you. The cramping is intense, and you feel weak and shaky when you finally finish. There are the rags again, the same communal cloths used for everything, and you must use them to clean yourself. The humiliation is complete, the degradation total. Every aspect of basic hygiene that you've taken for granted your entire life is absent here, replaced by practices that would horrify any modern health inspector. You're not getting cleaner, you're getting dirtier, accumulating layers of filth and bacteria that your body has no defense against. As you return from the bucket, you catch sight of your hands in the dim light filtering through the doorway. They're red. The cuts from yesterday are clearly infected now, with red streaks beginning to radiate from the wounds, the telltale sign of spreading infection. Your fingernails, usually clean and trimmed, are broken and packed with dirt. These are not your hands anymore. They're the hands of someone being broken down by medieval life, someone whose soft modern flesh is yielding to the harsh realities of this world. The woman is preparing to leave for her day's work, gathering firewood, perhaps, or working in the manor house, or any of the countless tasks that fill a peasant woman's day. The children are already gone, sent out to watch animals or help with harvesting, or perform whatever labor their small bodies can manage. The man gestures for you to follow him, and you understand that your day's work is about to begin, that you will be expected to labor in the fields, despite your complete lack of skill or physical conditioning. Before you leave, you take one last look around the hovel that has been your shelter for the night. In the grey morning light, it looks even worse than it did in darkness. The walls are crumbling, the thatch is rotting, the floor is packed with filth. The smell is overwhelming. Human waste, rotting straw, smoke, unwashed bodies, decay. This is home for these peasants, the best and cold. You think of your apartment or house in your previous life, with its climate control and running water and solid walls and clean floors, and the gulf between that world and this one seems unbridgeable. Your stomach cramps again as you step outside into the cold morning air. The breakfast you forced down is already causing problems, your digestive system in full revolt. You feel weak and shaky, dehydrated despite the water you drank, your body struggling to maintain basic functions while under assault from multiple directions. The infections in your hands throb with each heartbeat. Your teeth ache from the gritty bread. Your skin itches everywhere from the lice and fleas and general filth. Your lungs burn from the smoky air you've been breathing. The village spreads before you in the morning light, a collection of hovels similar to the Bruth, one you've just left, clustered around a muddy common area. There are no paved roads, no sidewalks, no drainage systems. The mud is ankle deep in places, mixed with animal waste and human refuse. Pigs root in the midden heaps. Chickens scratch in the dirt. A few scrawny cattle stand in makeshift pens, their ribs visible through their hides. Everything is brown and grey and bleak, the colours leached out by poverty and hardship. Other peasants are emerging from their dwellings, beginning their day's work with the same resigned movements as your host family. They look at you with suspicion and hostility. You're an outsider, a stranger, someone who doesn't belong and who might bring trouble. In a world where resources are scarce and survival is uncertain, strangers are threats, not opportunities. You can feel their eyes on you, judging, assessing, finding you wanting. The man leads you toward the fields, and you follow on unsteady legs, your body already exhausted, though the day has barely begun. Your modern life has not prepared you for this, not for the physical labor, not for the constant discomfort, not for the complete absence of the comforts and conveniences you've always taken for granted. You're breaking down, your body and mind both struggling to adapt to conditions they were never designed to handle. The morning routine is complete, such as it was. You've broken your fast with contaminated food and water. Break time =sign 900 ms. You've attempted hygiene with fetid water and filthy rags. You've relieved yourself in a communal bucket. You've done everything wrong by modern standards, everything that will hasten your decline, but you've had no choice. This is simply how life is lived in the medieval world, and you must live it too. Another wave of cramping in your abdomen, another urgent need building. The dysentery is relentless, draining you of fluids and strength. Your hands throb with infection. Your mouth tastes foul. Your skin crawls with parasites. And the day's real work hasn't even begun. You're already breaking down, and you know with terrible certainty that it will only get worse from here. The fields stretch before you in endless rows of stubbled earth, the remnants of the harvest creating a landscape of brown and grey beneath an overcast sky. Your modern eyes, accustomed to the geometric precision of industrial agriculture or the manicured appearance of suburban lawns, struggle to make sense of the medieval field system. The long strips of land divided among peasant families, separated by narrow paths of unploughed earth, the whole patchwork muddy and chaotic. The man who has become your reluctant guide points to a section where root vegetables remain to be harvested, and you understand without words that this will be your task for the day. You've been in the fields for perhaps an hour, though time has become difficult to track without the constant reference points of your previous life. No watch on your wrist, no phone in your pocket, no church bells to mark the hours in this poor village. The sun, when visible through the clouds, moves with agonizing slowness across the sky. Each minute feels like an hour, each hour like a day, as your body discovers muscles in concept, bend, grasp, pull, toss, but the execution reveals just how soft and weak your modern body has become. Bending. That's the first agony. You must bend at the waist, again and again, hundreds of times, thousands of times. Reaching down to grasp the tops of turnips or parsnips or whatever these root vegetables are. Your modern knowledge of produce extends to the sanitized specimens in grocery stores, not these muddy stores tours, not these muddy, misshapen things emerging from the cold earth. The first dozen bends are merely uncomfortable. Your hamstrings, tired from years of sitting at desks and in cars, protest the stretch. Your lower back, supported by ergonomic chairs and cushioned mattresses your entire life, begins to ache from the unfamiliar angle and the repetitive motion. By the 50th bend, the discomfort has become pain. Your lower back burns with each forward flex, the muscles spazzing as they struggle with work they were never conditioned to perform. You try to modify your technique, bending your knees more, but this only shifts the burden to your thighs and calves, which are equally unprepared for sustained labor. There is no good position, no comfortable way to perform this task. You can only endure knowing that stopping means facing the wrath of the bailiff or the Lord's reeve, those enforcers of feudal obligation who patrol the fields with sticks and the authority to punish any perceived shirking. By the 100th bend, something in your back gives way, not catastrophically, not with the sharp pop of a ruptured disc, but with a deep, grinding sensation that signals serious strain. Your spine feels compressed, the vertebrae grinding against each other without the cushioning of properly conditioned muscles. A spasm shoots through your lower back, causing you to cry out and straighten suddenly. The peasants working nearby glance at you with content. They've been performing this labor since childhood, their bodies hardened to it, their pain tolerance calibrated to a level you cannot imagine. Your weakness disgusts them, marks you as useless, as someone who consumes resources without contributing adequately to the collective survival. You force yourself to continue, to bend again despite the screaming protest of your back muscles. The turnip you're trying to harvest is stuck fast in the cold, hard earth. You pull and nothing happens. You pull harder, wrapping both hands around the leafy top, and feel the stems cutting into your already damaged palms. The cuts from yesterday, now infected and inflamed, split open further under the pressure. You feel the warm trickle of blood mixing with the cold mud on your hands, and you know that this fresh wound will only provide another releases its grip on the earth with a sucking sound, and you stumble backward, nearly falling. Your hands are now coated with mud, not the clean soil of a garden center, but medieval field mud, a mixture of earth, manure, decomposing plant matter, and the waste products of the animals that have grazed here. This mud is alive with bacteria, with parasite eggs, with fungal spores. It packs under your broken fingernails, works its way into every cut and abrasion on your hands, coats your skin in a layer of contamination that you have no way to properly clean off. You toss the turnip onto the growing pile and bend again, and again, and again, and again. Each repetition is torture. Your back spasms with increasing frequency, the muscles locked in a state of constant tension, unable to relax even when you straighten. Your hands, slippery with blood and mud, struggle to maintain their grip on the vegetables. Blisters that formed yesterday have burst, and now raw flesh rubs directly against the rough stems and roots. New blisters are forming on top of the old ones, fluid-filled pockets of damaged tissue that will inevitably become infected in this filthy environment. The cold is relentless. Your inadequate clothing, the rough woolen tunic and hose that provide minimal insulation, is now soaked through with a combination of sweat from your labors and the constant dampness of the autumn air. Wet wool loses much of its insulating properties, and you feel the cold penetrating deeper with each passing hour. Your fingers are becoming numb, making it even harder to grip the vegetables. Your feet, wrapped in cloth inside the barely functional leather shoes, are wet and cold, the early stages of trench foot beginning as your skin softens and breaks down from the constant moisture. A figure approaches across the field. The bailiff, the Lord's enforcer, a man whose authority is absolute within the bounds of the manor. He carries a stout stick, and his expression is one of perpetual suspicion and hostility. His job is to ensure that every peasant meets their labor obligations, that no one shirks or steals, that the Lord's interests are protected. He stops near your section of the field and surveys your work with obvious displeasure. Your pile of harvested turnips is pathetically small compared to those of the experienced peasants working nearby. He says something in Middle English, the words barely comprehensible to your modern ears. The language has evolved so much that you catch perhaps one word in 3. But his tone needs no translation. You're not working fast enough. You're not pulling your weight. You're a burden on the community. He emphasizes his displeasure by striking work harder or face punishment. There is no appeal, no explanation that will satisfy him, no mercy in this system. You bend again, faster now, driven by fear rather than any remaining strength. Your back screams in protest, but you ignore it. Your hands leave bloody smears on the turnip tops, but you don't stop. The bailiff watches for a few more minutes, then moves on to terrorize other workers, his presence a constant reminder that this is not voluntary labor, but obligation enforced by the threat of violence. In your previous life, you had rights, labor laws, workplace safety regulations, the ability to quit a job if conditions became intolerable. Here, you have no rights at all. You are bound to this land, obligated to work it, subject to the Lord's will and the bailiff's enforcement. Your stomach cramps again, the dysentery that began yesterday, now in full force. You feel the urgent pressure building, the unmistakable signal that your bowels are about to release whether you're ready or not. There is no bathroom here, no outhouse, no privacy of any kind. You look around desperately, but there's nowhere to go, nothing to do except move to the edge of the field and relieve yourself in full view of anyone who happens to look your way. The humiliation is complete, but worse than it you cannot replace, your body dehydrating rapidly, despite the water you forced down this morning. You return to work, your clothing now soiled, adding another layer of discomfort and degradation to your already miserable state. The other peasants have noticed, and you can see the disgust in their expressions. Dysentery is common enough in this world, but it's still viewed as a sign of weakness, of poor constitution. They mutter among themselves, and though you can't understand the words, you understand the tone. You're not one of them. You're an outsider, a burden, someone who might bring disease or bad luck, or simply consume resources without contributing adequately to the community's survival. The sun climbs higher, though its warmth is negligible through the cloud cover. You've been working for hours now, and your body is approaching complete breakdown. Your back has moved beyond pain into a state of constant, grinding agony. Each bend sends spasms through your lower spine, and you can feel something fundamentally wrong in the way your vertebrae move against each other. In your previous life, this would mean an immediate trip to the emergency room, X-rays, possibly an MRI, pain medication, muscle relaxants, physical therapy. Here, it means nothing except that you must continue working, or the palms are raw meat, the skin completely abraded away in places, exposing the sensitive tissue beneath. Every time you grasp a turnip top, pain shoots through your hands like electric shocks. The infections from yesterday's cuts have spread, the red streaks now extending up your wrists, your lymph nodes swollen as your immune system tries desperately to fight off the invasion. But your immune system, evolved for a sanitized world, is overwhelmed. It doesn't recognize these medieval pathogens, doesn't have the antibodies or the conditioning to mount an effective defense. A peasant woman, working nearby, takes pity on you, or perhaps she simply can't stand watching your incompetent struggles any longer. She approaches and demonstrates the proper technique for harvesting root vegetables, her movements efficient and economical, the result of a lifetime of practice. She bends at the hips, keeping her back straighter, using her legs more. She grasps the turnip tops firmly, but not desperately, twisting as she pulls to break the root's grip on the soil. She makes it look easy, effortless, though you know her body must ache too. She's just learned to work through pain that would incapacitate you. You try to mimic her technique, but your body won't cooperate. Your legs, never. Your damaged hands can't maintain the firm grip she demonstrates. Your back, already injured, spasms violently when you try to keep it straighter. The woman shakes her head in disgust and returns to her own work, leaving you to struggle alone. You've confirmed what she suspected. You're useless, a drain on the community, someone who will consume food without producing enough to justify your existence. The social dynamics of the medieval village are becoming clearer to you as the morning progresses. This is a society operating on the razor's edge of survival, where every person must contribute or face exclusion. There is no safety net, no welfare system, no charity beyond what the church might provide, and the church's charity is limited and conditional. The peasants watch each other constantly, noting who works hard and who shirks, who contributes to the collective survival and who threatens it. Reputation is everything, and yours is already terrible. You're the stranger who can't work, who gets sick, who requires resources without providing adequate return. Worse, you're beginning to understand the precariousness of your position in the feudal hierarchy. You have no legal standing, no rights, no protection beyond what the Lord chooses to grant. The Lord, whom you haven't seen, but whose presence dominates every aspect of village life ounce, everything, the land, the crops, even in a sense, the people who he decides you're a vagrant or a thief or simply unwanted, he can have you whipped, mutilated, or hanged, and there is no appeal, no higher authority to petition, no concept of due process or human rights. The bailiff makes another circuit of the fields, and this time he stops directly in front of you. He examines your pile of harvested turnips, comparing it to those of the other workers, and his displeasure is evident. He speaks again, the words harsh and threatening, and though you can't understand the specifics, you understand that this is a warning. Improve your output or face consequences. He emphasizes his point by striking your shoulder with his stick, not hard enough to seriously injure, but hard enough to hurt, to remind you of your place, to demonstrate that he has the power to inflict pain, and you have no recourse. You work faster, or try to, but speed only increases the damage to your body. Your back spasms more frequently. Your hands tear open further. Your legs shake with fatigue. Your stomach cramps with increasing urgency. The dysentery is worsening, your body losing fluids faster than you can replace them. You feel dizzy and weak, your vision occasionally blurring, the early signs of dehydration and electrolyte imbalance. In your previous life, this would mean the cold continues to penetrate deeper. Your core temperature is dropping, your body unable to generate enough heat to compensate for the wet clothing and constant exposure. Your fingers are beyond numb now, clumsy and unresponsive. You drop turnips repeatedly, having to bend even more times to retrieve them, each additional bend another assault on your damaged back. Your feet have lost most sensation, and you stumble frequently in the muddy field, your balance compromised by fatigue and cold and the general breakdown of your body's systems. Other workers begin to drift toward the central area where a communal meal is being prepared, the midday dinner that will provide the main calories for the day. You follow, moving stiffly, your back locked in a position of permanent semiflexion, unable to fully straighten. Each step sends jolts of pain through your spine. Your hands hang at your sides, too damaged to close into fists, the raw flesh exposed to the cold air. You're shivering uncontrollably now, your body's attempt to generate heat through muscle movement. But the shivering only increases your caloric expenditure, accelerating your decline. The meal is similar to breakfast. Pottage, this time with some unidentifiable meat floating in it, and more of the hard, moldy bread. Your lower status, your lack of contribution. The peasants eat quickly and in silence, refueling for the afternoon's labor. You try to eat, but your stomach rebels immediately. The dysentery has progressed to the point where your digestive system can't process food properly. Each swallow threatens to come back up, and you know that eating will only lead to more cramping, more urgent trips to the field's edge, more humiliation and fluid loss. But you must eat something. Your body is burning through its reserves at an alarming rate. The physical labor, the cold, the illness, all demanding energy you don't have. You force down a few mouthfuls of the pottage, gagging on the greasy meat, and immediately feel your stomach protest. The bread is impossible. Your damaged gums can't handle the hard, gritty texture, and blood mixes with the bread as you try to chew. You spit it out discreetly, but the peasants notice, their contempt for you growing. The meal break is brief, perhaps 20 minutes, no more. There is no rest period, no time to recover. The bailiff is already gesturing for everyone to return to work, his stick ready to enforce compliance. You struggle to your feet, your back screaming in protest, your legs barely able to support your weight. The afternoon stretches ahead of you, hours more of labor that you cannot possibly perform, but that you must attempt anyway, because the alternative is punishment or expulsion, either of which means death in this harsh world. As you return to your section of the field, you catch sight of your reflection in a puddle of muddy water. The face looking back at you is almost unrecognizable. Your skin is grey with cold and fatigue. Your eyes are sunken, dark circles beneath them. Your lips are cracked and bleeding. Mud streaks your face mixed with sweat and perhaps tears. You're not sure when you started crying, but your cheeks are wet. This is what medieval life does to a modern human in less than 2 days. It breaks you down, strips away the soft veneer of civilization, reveals the fragility beneath. You bend again, and your back gives another ominous grinding sensation. You grasp another turnip, and your hands leave bloody prints on the leaves. You pull, and your muscles shake with the effort. You toss the vegetable onto the pile and immediately bend again, because stopping means punishment, means violence, means the arbitrary cruelty of a system that values production over human dignity or suffering. The infections in your hands are spreading rapidly now. The red streaks extend past your wrists, up your forearms. Your lymph nodes are swollen and tender emic response to the bacterial invasion, but it's a losing battle. Time =, 900 ms. Without antibiotics, without proper wound care, without even the ability to keep your hands clean and dry, the infections will continue to spread. Sepsis is a real possibility, blood poisoning, that will kill you within days if your body can't fight it off. Your core temperature continues to drop. The wet clothing, the constant exposure, the inadequate nutrition, the illness, all are contributing to hypothermia. Your shivering has become less effective, a bad sign that your body is losing its ability to generate heat. Your thinking is becoming fuzzy, your movements increasingly uncoordinated. You're entering the early stages of hypothermia, and there's no warm room to retreat to, no hot shower, no dry clothes, no heated blanket. Tonight, you'll return to the same cold hovel, the same damp bedding, the same inadequate covering, and your body temperature will drop further. The afternoon wears on with agonizing slowness. Each minute is an eternity of pain and cold and exhaustion. Your pile of harvested turnips grows with pathetic slowness, each vegetable representing dozens of bends, hundreds of moments of suffering. The other workers have moved on to different sections of the field, their efficiency making your struggles even more obvious. You're alone now, isolated by your incompetence, marked as someone the day's end, and his assessment of your work is damning. You've produced perhaps a quarter of what an experienced worker would have harvested, time = 900 ms. Your pile is shamefully small, your contribution to the manor's stores inadequate. He speaks to you again, and this time, his tone carries a finality that needs no translation. This is your last chance. Improve tomorrow or face consequences. He doesn't specify what those consequences might be, but you've heard the stories. The stocks where offenders are locked in public humiliation, the whipping post where flesh is stripped from backs, the gallows where thieves and vagrants swing. As the light begins to fail and the workers finally stop their labor, you straighten, or try to. Your back won't fully extend. You're locked in a bent position, the muscles in spasm, the vertebrae compressed and misaligned. You shuffle toward the village, moving like someone 3 times your age, your body broken by a single day of labor that medieval peasants perform from childhood until death or disability makes them useless. Your hands are beyond description. The palms are raw, weeping flesh. The fingers are swollen and stiff, the infection spreading visibly. You can see red streaks extending up bacteria, traveling through your lymphatic system toward your bloodstream. In your previous life, this would be a medical emergency. Here, it's just another injury, another source of pain to endure without treatment or relief. As you approach the hovel that serves as your shelter, you know that tonight will bring no comfort, no recovery. Time = 900 ms. You'll eat more contaminated food, drink more polluted water, sleep in the same filthy bedding, and wake tomorrow to do it all again. Your body is breaking down faster than it can repair itself. The infections are spreading. The dysentery is worsening. The hypothermia is progressing. You're dying, slowly but inevitably, killed by the simple act of trying to survive in a world your modern body was never designed to inhabit. The sun sets behind the clouds, and darkness falls over the medieval village. Another day survived, but at what cost? Your suffering has only begun, and you know with terrible certainty that tomorrow will be worse, and the day after worse still, until your body finally surrenders to the accumulated damage, and you join the countless millions who have died from the simple brutality of medieval life. This is the reality behind the romantic fantasies, the truth beneath the costume dramas. This is what it means to live without modern, pure and unrelenting, and there is no escape. The afternoon sun, weak and watery behind perpetual clouds, marks the beginning of your body's true collapse. You've returned to the hovel after the midday meal, your contribution to the day's labor deemed so inadequate that even the bailiff has given up on you for now, saving his violence for tomorrow, when you'll either improve or face punishment. The peasant family watches you with expressions that mix contempt and calculation. They're already wondering how long you'll last, whether you'll die in their dwelling and bring bad luck, whether the Lord will hold them responsible for your failure. You collapse onto the straw pallet that served as your bed last night, and immediately your body begins to catalogue its failures. The infections in your hands have progressed beyond the red streaks you noticed earlier. Your palms are swollen to nearly twice their normal size, the skin stretched tight and shiny, hot to the touch despite the cold air. Pus weeps from the deeper cuts, yellow, white and foul-smelling. Each heartbeat sends throbbing waves of pain through your hands, the infected tissue pulsing with its own sick rhythm. Your modern immune system, evolved in a world of antibiotics and antiseptics, has never encountered pathogens like these. The bacteria thriving in your wounds are ancient strains, unchanged for millennia, resistant to nothing because they've never needed to be. There are no antibiotics here to resist. Your white blood cells swarm to the infection sites, but they're overwhelmed by sheer numbers. For every bacterium they destroy, 100 more multiply in the warm, nutrient-rich environment of your damaged flesh. The lymph nodes in your armpits are swollen and tender now, hard lumps beneath your skin, where your lymphatic system is desperately trying to filter the infection before it reaches your bloodstream. But it's already too late for that. You can feel it in the way your body aches, in the subtle fever beginning to build behind your eyes, in the way your thoughts are becoming slightly fuzzy at the edges. Bacteria are entering your bloodstream through the compromised tissue of your hands, beginning their journey through your circulatory system. Sepsis, blood poisoning, is setting in, and without modern medical intervention, it will kill you within days. Your body will mount a massive inflammatory response. Your blood pressure will drop. Your organs will begin to fail, one by one, and you will die in agony. Fully began yesterday has progressed from uncomfortable to dangerous. Your intestines are inflamed and ulcerated, the lining damaged by the bacterial infection, likely Shigella, or perhaps Campylobacter, common medieval killers that your sanitized modern gut has no defenses against. Each bout of diarrhea, coming now every hour or so, drains more fluid from your body. You're losing not just water, but essential electrolytes, sodium, potassium, chloride, that your cells need to function. Your heart rhythm is becoming irregular as potassium levels drop. Your muscles cramp and twitch as sodium imbalances affect nerve function. Your kidneys are struggling to maintain proper fluid balance, concentrating your urine to dangerous levels as they try to conserve what little water remains in your system. You need to drink, desperately, but the only water available is the same contaminated source that made you sick in the first place. The wooden bucket sits near the hearth, its contents cloudy with sediment and alive with microorganisms. You know that drinking it will only worsen your condition, introducing more pathogens into your already overwhelmed system. But dehydration will kill you faster than infection, so you have no choice. You drag yourself to the bucket and drink deeply, the water tasting of earth and decay, and feel it sliding into your stomach where it will soon be expelled again, taking more of your body's precious fluids with it. A new symptom emerges as you lie back down, a deep, rattling cough that brings up thick phlegm. Your lungs, irritated by days of breathing the smoke-filled air of the hovel and the damp cold of the fields, have developed an infection of their own. Pneumonia, likely, or perhaps bronchitis. The distinction hardly matters without treatment. Each breath requires effort now, your airways constricted and filled with mucus. You can hear the wet crackling in your chest, the sound of fluid accumulating in your lungs where air should be. Your oxygen levels are dropping, your lips taking on a faint bluish tinge, your brain receiving less oxygen with each labored breath. The combination of infections is creating a cascade of failures in your body's systems. Your immune system, already overwhelmed by the hand infections and the dysentery, cannot mount an effective defense against the respiratory infection. Your cardiovascular system, stressed by dehydration and electrolyte imbalances, cannot adequately oxygenate your tissues. Your digestive system, damaged and inflamed, cannot absorb the nutrients you need to fuel your immune response. Each system's failure compounds the others, creating a downward spiral that accelerates with each passing hour. The fever is building now, unmistakable. Your skin feels hot and dry despite the cold air, your body's thermostat broken by the infectioners, the intense shaking that accompanies high fever as your body tries to generate heat to fight the infection. Your temperature is climbing past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, past 101, approaching 102. At these temperatures, proteins begin to denature, cellular processes become disrupted, and brain function deteriorates. You're becoming delirious, your thoughts fragmenting, reality blurring at the edges. The peasant woman notices your condition and approaches with something that might be concern, or might simply be worry about the inconvenience of having you die in her home. She places a rough hand on your forehead and mutters something in Middle English, then withdraws. A few minutes later, she returns with another woman, older, gap-toothed, carrying a leather bag. The village-wise woman, the closest thing to medical care available in this world. Your modern mind, even in its fevered state, recognizes the profound irony. You're about to receive medieval medicine, and it will likely kill you, faster than the diseases. The wise woman examines you with hands that are no cleaner than anyone else's in the village. She pokes at your swollen hands, causing fresh waves of pain. She listens to your labored breathing, her ear pressed against your chest. She pulls back your eyelids' armpits. Then she begins her treatment, and you understand with horror what medieval medicine actually means. She produces a small knife, not a surgical instrument, but a common blade used for cutting food and leather and probably never cleaned. She's going to bleed you. The theory, which will persist for centuries more, is that illness results from an imbalance of humors in the body and that removing blood will restore balance. The reality is that bleeding will further weaken your already compromised system, reducing your blood volume, lowering your blood pressure, decreasing the oxygen carrying capacity of your blood. But you're too weak to resist as she makes a cut in your arm, letting your blood drip into a wooden bowl. The knife is filthy, of course, introducing new bacteria directly into your bloodstream. You watch your blood flow out, blood you cannot afford to lose, blood that carries the white cells and antibodies that are your only defense against the infections ravaging your body. The wise woman watches the flow with satisfaction, nodding as if this barbaric practice is helping rather than hastening your death. When she's satisfied that enough blood has been removed, she presses a cloth against the wound, a cloth that's been used for countless other purposes, stiff with accumulated grime. But she's not finished. From her bag, she produces a collection of herbs and what appears to be animal dung, yes, actual feces, dried and powdered. She mixes these ingredients with some liquid, probably urine, you realize with revulsion, creating a paste that she begins applying to your infected hands. The theory, based on the doctrine of signatures and sympathetic magic, rather than any understanding of germ theory, is that this poultice will draw out the infection. The reality is that she's applying a mixture teeming with additional bacteria directly to your open wounds, guaranteeing that the infections will worsen. The paste burns as it contacts your raw flesh, and you cry out, but the wise woman continues her work methodically. She wraps your hands in more dirty cloth, binding the poultice in place, ensuring that the bacteria-laden mixture will have maximum contact with your damaged tissue. She mutters what might be prayers or might be incantations. The line between medicine and magic is non-existent in this era. She's doing her best, applying the accumulated wisdom of centuries, and every single thing she does is making you worse. For your cough, she produces a liquid that smells strongly of alcohol and herbs. You drink it because refusing would be seen as rejecting help, and it burns going down, probably doing nothing for your pneumonia, but at least providing some warmth and to give you more of this liquid regularly. Then she leaves, satisfied that she's done all that medieval medicine can do, unaware that her interventions have accelerated your decline. The afternoon wears on, and your condition deteriorates with frightening speed. The fever climbs higher, reaching 103 degrees, 104. At these temperatures, you're at risk of seizures, of permanent brain damage, if you somehow survive. Your thoughts are fragmenting completely now, reality and delirium blending together. You see faces that aren't there, hear voices speaking in languages you don't understand, feel sensations that have no basis in reality. Your modern mind, that sophisticated product of evolution and education, is being destroyed by simple hypothermia. The dysentery continues its relentless assault. Every hour, sometimes more frequently, you must drag yourself to the bucket, your bowels releasing watery fluid that's now tinged with blood, a sign that the ulceration of your intestinal lining has progressed to the point of bleeding. You're losing blood from both ends now, from the wise woman's bleeding and from your damaged intestines. Your blood pressure is dropping, your heart racing to compensate, your extremities becoming cold and pale as your body prioritizes blood flow to your vital organs. Your kidneylating in your bloodstream is overwhelming their ability to filter and produce urine. When you do urinate, the output is dark and scanty, concentrated to the point of being almost brown. Waste products are building up in your bloodstream, urea, creatinine, potassium, reaching toxic levels that will eventually poison your brain and stop your heart. The respiratory infection is worsening rapidly. Fluid is accumulating in your lungs, drowning you from the inside. Each breath is a struggle, your chest heaving with the effort, your accessory muscles, neck, shoulders, abdomen, all recruited to help move air in and out. The crackling in your lungs is louder now, audible even without pressing an ear to your chest. Your lips are definitely blue, your fingernails too. The cyanosis marking your body's failure to oxygenate your blood adequately. Your brain, starved of oxygen, is functioning at a fraction of its normal capacity. The hypothermia that began in the fields is progressing despite the fever. It seems contradictory, but your body's temperature regulation is completely disrupted. Your core temperature is elevated from the fever, but your extremities are cold from poor circulation. Your wet clothing, never changed or dried, continues to leach heat from thin blanket, offers little insulation. You're shivering and sweating simultaneously, your body's thermostat broken beyond repair. As evening approaches, you become aware of a new presence in the hovel. A man in dark robes, the village priest, summoned because you're clearly dying and someone has decided your soul needs attending to. He carries the implements for last rites, ready to perform the final sacrament that will supposedly ensure your passage to heaven. The irony is not lost on you. Even in your delirious state, you're dying of diseases that could be cured with a single course of antibiotics, yet the best this era can offer is prayers for your soul. The priest begins his ritual, speaking Latin that you don't understand, making signs of the cross, anointing you with oil. The peasant family kneels nearby, their heads bowed, already mourning you, or perhaps just going through the motions expected of them. You try to speak, to explain that you are not from this time, that you have knowledge of medicine and science that could save you if only you had access to it, but your words come out as fevered gibberish. The priest interprets your ravings as the devil trying to claim your soul, and he intensifies his prayers. Your modern knowledge killing you, the bacterial infections, the dehydration, the multiple organ failure, but knowing changes nothing. You know that a simple course of broad-spectrum antibiotics would stop the infections in their tracks. You know that IV fluids would restore your hydration and electrolyte balance. You know that oxygen therapy would help your struggling lungs. You know that proper wound care would have prevented the infections from ever starting. But none of these things exist in this world. And your knowledge is as useful as knowing how to fly when you're falling off a cliff. The psychological impact of your situation is perhaps worse than the physical suffering. You're dying, and you know it, and you're fully conscious of every step of the process. There's no morphine to ease your pain, no sedatives to grant you unconsciousness, no mercy in this slow destruction of your body. You must endure every moment of your decline, feeling each system fail, experiencing each new symptom, understanding exactly what's happening to you, while being completely powerless to stop it. The fear is overwhelming. Not just fear of death, though that's certainly present, but fear of the suffering that lies ahead. You know that your condition will continue to worsen through the night and into tomorrow. The infections will spread further. There will be no relief, no escape, no way to speed the process or ease the suffering. You will simply have to endure until your body finally gives up. The realization of your complete helplessness is crushing. In your previous life, you had agency, control, the ability to solve problems and improve your situation. Here, you have nothing. You cannot call for help. There is no help to call. You cannot seek better treatment. There is no better treatment. You cannot escape this situation. There is no escape. You are trapped in a dying body in a world that has no means to save you, and you must simply accept that this is how your life will end. The peasants are already discussing what to do with your body after you die. You can't understand their words, but their gestures and tones make their meaning clear. They're worried about the cost of burial, about whether the Lord will demand payment for the plot of ground. They're calculating whether your few possessions, the clothes you're wearing, essentially, are worth keeping or should be burned to prevent the spread of disease. They're treating you as already dead, a problem to be managed rather than a person to be mourned. And perhaps they're right to do so. You are dying, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Your modern body adapted to a world of climate control and medical care less than 3 days, and already your systems are shutting down. The average medieval peasant, hardened from birth to these conditions, might survive the same illnesses that are killing you. Their immune systems, constantly challenged by pathogens, are stronger. Their bodies, conditioned by hard labor and inadequate nutrition, are tougher. Their expectations, calibrated to a world of suffering, are lower. But you are not a medieval peasant. You are a modern human, soft and weak and utterly unprepared for this harsh reality. Every comfort you've ever taken for granted, the clean water flowing from taps, the antibiotics available at any pharmacy, the heated homes and soft beds, and abundant food, all of these represent centuries of human progress, countless innovations and discoveries that have made life bearable. Without them, you are revealed as what you truly are, a fragile creature, barely capable of survival, dependent on technology and infrastructure for your very existence. The fevered dreams are becoming more vivid now, more real than reality. You see your modern life playing out before you, the comfortable apartment, the refrigerator full of food, the medicine cabinet stocked with over-the-counter remedies, the smartphone connecting you to all human knowledge. These things seem like impossible appreciated because you never knew their absence. You see yourself complaining about minor inconveniences, slow internet, cold coffee, a delayed package, and you want to scream at your past self about how good you had it, how every moment of comfort was a gift you didn't recognize. The priest finishes his ritual and departs, his duty done, your soul presumably prepared for its journey. The peasants settle in for the night, lying down on their pallets, pulling their thin blankets over themselves. They've done what they can for you, which is essentially nothing, and now they'll sleep while you suffer through the night. There's no vigil, no death watch, no comfort offered to the dying. Death is too common in this world to warrant such attention. People die all the time, from disease, from injury, from starvation, from violence, and life goes on for those who survive. The fire dies down to embers, and the cold intensifies. Your fever-racked body shivers violently, unable to maintain temperature despite the elevated core heat. The infections rage on, bacteria multiplying in your bloodstream, your immune system overwhelmed and failing. Your lungs fill with more fluid, each breath a struggle, your oxygen levels dropping further. Your kidneys produce less and less urine, toxins building in your blood. Your heart races, trying to compensate for low blood pressure and poor oxygenation, wearing itself out in the process. You lie in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the medieval night, rats scurrying along the walls, the wind whistling through gaps in the thatch, the breathing of the sleeping peasants, your own laboured gasps for air. This is your reality now, and it will be your reality until you die. There is no rescue coming, no miracle cure, no sudden return to your comfortable modern life. There is only this, suffering and decline and the slow approach of death. The descent is complete. Your body has moved from discomfort to illness to multiple organ failure in less than 3 days. The cascade of infections and complications has overwhelmed every defense your modern body possessed. You are dying in a medieval hovel, surrounded by strangers who view you as an inconvenience, attended by medicine that hastens rather than delays your end, and there is nothing you can do but endure the hours remaining to you. As consciousness begins to fade, pulled under by fever and hypoxia and exhaustion, your last coherent thought is one of profound gratitude for the world you left behind. Every pill you ever swallowed, every doctor you ever visited, every clean glass of water you ever drank, these were miracles, gifts beyond price. Beyond price, comforts that separated you from the brutal reality of human existence. Having felt what life is like without them, you understand their true value. But understanding comes too late, as it so often does, and the darkness rises to claim you. Darkness falls over the medieval village like a shroud, and with it comes the final chapter of your brief, brutal existence in this unforgiving world. The sun has set behind the perpetual clouds, taking with it what little warmth the day provided, and the temperature inside the hovel drops precipitously. The peasant family has allowed the fire to die to embers. Fuel is too precious to waste on a dying stranger, and the cold seeps through the wattle and daub walls like water through a sieve. Your body, already compromised by multiple infections and organ failure, now faces the additional challenge of hypothermia in earnest. You lie on the straw pallet, barely conscious, your mind drifting between fevered delirium and moments of terrible clarity. In these clear moments, you're acutely aware of every sensation, every failure of your body's systems. Your core temperature, despite the raging fever, is dropping. This paradox, burning up while freezing to death, is one of the cruelest aspects of your condition. The fever has disrupted your body's thermoregulation completely, while relentlessly to drain away your remaining heat. The shivering that plagued you earlier has largely stopped, and this is not a good sign. When the body can no longer generate the muscle contractions needed for shivering, it means hypothermia has progressed to a dangerous stage. Your muscles are too exhausted, your energy reserves too depleted, your systems too compromised to mount even this basic defense against the cold. Your extremities, fingers, toes, nose, ears, have lost almost all sensation, the blood vessels constricted to preserve warmth for your vital organs. But even this desperate measure is failing, your core temperature sliding inexorably downward. The infections in your hands have spread beyond any hope of control. The wise woman's poultice, still bound to your swollen flesh, has done exactly what you knew it would: introduced additional bacteria into the wounds, accelerated the tissue damage, hastened the spread of sepsis through your bloodstream. You can smell the infection now, a sweet sick odor of rotting flesh that mingles with all the other smells in the hovel. The red streaks have extended past your elbows, visible even in the dim light from the dying embers. Your lymph nodes are massively swollen, hard lumps in your armpits and neck, Your lymphatic system overwhelms, your heart is troubling. You can feel it in your chest, not the strong, steady rhythm you've known your entire life, but an irregular, fluttering beat that seems to skip and race and pause at random. The electrolyte imbalances from the dysentery have disrupted the electrical signals that coordinate your heartbeat. Potassium levels, critically low from days of fluid loss, are causing dangerous arrhythmias. Each irregular beat sends a wave of dizziness through you, your brain receiving inadequate blood flow, your consciousness flickering like a candle in the wind. The dysentery continues its relentless assault, though you're beyond the point of making it to the bucket anymore. Your bowels release involuntarily now, the watery, blood-tinged fluid soaking into the straw beneath you. The peasants will have to burn this bedding after you die, another inconvenience you're causing them, another cost of your presence in their lives. You've lost so much fluid that your skin has lost its elasticity. When pressed, it stays tented up, a sign of severe dehydration that would send any modern medical professional into emergency mode. But here, there is no emergency mode, no IV fluids, no electrolyte replacement. There is only the slow process of your body drying out from functioning. The combination of dehydration, low blood pressure, and the toxic effects of the sepsis has caused acute kidney failure. Waste products are accumulating in your bloodstream, urea, creatinine, potassium, phosphate, reaching levels that are poisoning your brain and other organs. This uremia is causing its own symptoms: nausea, confusion, a metallic taste in your mouth, muscle twitching. Your body is drowning in its own waste, unable to filter or excrete the toxins that normal metabolism produces. The pneumonia has progressed to the point where breathing is no longer an automatic process but a conscious struggle. Fluid fills your lungs, drowning you from within. Each breath requires tremendous effort, your chest heaving, your accessory muscles straining, your entire body focused on the simple act of moving air in and out. The crackling in your lungs is constant now, audible with each labored breath. Your lips and fingernails are deeply cyanotic, a dark blue purple that speaks of profound oxygen deprivation. Your brain, starved of oxygen, is producing vivid hallucinations that blend seamlessly with reality. You see your modern life playing out before you with hallucinatory clarity. Your apartment with its thermostat set to a comfortable 72 degrees, its refrigerator humming with fresh food, its bathroom gleaming with pour, the clean water cascading over your skin, washing away the day's minor accumulations of dirt and sweat. You see yourself reaching into the medicine cabinet for ibuprofen to treat a headache, for antibiotic ointment to treat a paper cut, for any of the dozens of over-the-counter remedies you kept on hand for minor ailments. These visions seem more real than the cold, dark hovel where you're actually dying. The peasant family sleeps around you, their breathing steady and deep, undisturbed by your suffering. They've seen death before, many times, probably. Children die in infancy from diseases that would be easily treated in your time. Adults die from infections that start with minor injuries. Old people, anyone over 40 die from the accumulated damage of a lifetime of hard labor and poor nutrition. Death is commonplace, unremarkable, just another part of the brutal cycle of medieval life. Your death will be noted, your body disposed of, and life will continue for those who remain. A new symptom emerges as the hours creep past midnight. You begin to taste blood. Not the faint metallic taste of uremia, but actual blood welling up from your damaged lungs with each cough. The pneumonia has progressed to the point where the delicate tissues of your lungs are breaking down, small blood vessels rupturing, blood mixing with the fluids onto the straw, blood and pus and the debris of your disintegrating lung tissue. Each cough is agony, your chest muscles exhausted, your ribs aching from the constant effort of breathing. Your fever has reached its peak, 105 degrees Fahrenheit, perhaps higher. At these temperatures, proteins begin to denature, enzymes lose their function, cellular processes break down. Your brain is cooking in your skull, neurons dying by the millions, your consciousness fragmenting into disconnected shards. You're no longer sure what's real and what's hallucination. The hovel seems to shift and change around you. Sometimes you're in the medieval dwelling, sometimes in your modern apartment, sometimes in places that exist only in your fevered imagination. You see people who aren't there. Your family, perhaps, or friends from your previous life, standing in the shadows of the hovel, watching you die. They speak to you, but their words make no sense. Syllables without meaning, sounds without context. Time equals sign 900 ms. You try to respond, to explain what's happening to you, but your voice is a rasp, barely audible, the words emerging as gibberish. The line between life and death is blurring, the boundary between consciousness and oblivion becoming permeable. Your body is shutting down in a specific sequence, the way bodies do when multiple organ systems fail simultaneously. Your kidneys have already stopped. Your liver, overwhelmed by the toxins from the infections and the breakdown products of your own dying tissues, is failing next. You can feel a deep ache in your right upper abdomen, where your liver sits, swollen and inflamed, unable to perform its hundreds of essential functions. Without your liver to process waste products and synthesize essential proteins, your blood chemistry is becoming increasingly chaotic. Your heart is the next critical system approaching failure. The arrhythmias are worsening, your heartbeat becoming more irregular, more ineffective at pumping blood to your tissues. Your blood pressure has dropped to dangerous levels. You can feel it in the way your vision darkens when you try to move, in the way your extremities are cold and pale. In the way your extremities are cold and pale, in the way your consciousness keeps fading in and out. Your heart muscle, weakened by the electrolyte imbalances and the constant strain of trying to compensate for low blood pressure and poor oxygenation, is wearing out. Soon it will simply stop, unable to continue its endless work in the face of impossible conditions. The cold has penetrated to your core now. Your body temperature, despite the fever, is dropping toward ambient temperature. This is the final stage of hypothermia, where the body's temperature regulation fails completely. You feel paradoxically warm now, a dangerous illusion that hypothermia victims often experience in their final moments. Your blood vessels, constricted for hours to preserve core warmth, suddenly dilate, sending the last of your warm blood to your extremities. This feels like warmth returning, like recovery, but it's actually the opposite. It's your body giving up, abandoning the fight to maintain temperature. You're aware in your fragmentary consciousness that you're dying. Not dying in some abstract future sense, but dying right now, in these moments, your life measured in minutes rather than hours. The realization brings a strange mixture of emotions. Terror, certainly, the primal fear of extinction that every living thing carries, but also relief, because the suffering will soon end, because you won't have to endure another day of this brutal existence. And underneath it all, a profound sadness for everything you're losing, for the life you had and will never have again. Your modern mind, even as it disintegrates, tries to catalogue what's happening, to understand the process of your own death. You know that your brain is being damaged by the combination of fever, hypoxia, and the toxic waste products accumulating in your blood. You know that. Your consciousness, that sense of self that makes you, you, is an emergent property of billions of neurons firing in complex patterns, and that as those neurons die, that consciousness will simply cease to exist. They are electrochemical processes that created your awareness. This knowledge, which might have brought comfort in your previous life, now seems terrifying in its finality. The sensory experience of dying is both more and less than you imagined. The pain, which has been constant for days, is beginning to fade, not because you're healing, but because your nervous system is shutting down, unable to transmit signals effectively. You feel detached from your body as if you're floating slightly above it, watching it fail from a distance. This is a known phenomenon in dying patients, possibly caused by the brain's attempt to protect consciousness from overwhelming sensory input, possibly just another hallucination produced by your oxygen-starved neurons. Your hearing is the last sense to fade. You can still hear the sounds of the hovel, the breathing of the sleeping peasants, the scurrying of rats, the wind whistling through gaps in the thatch, the crackling of the dying embers. These sounds seem to come from very far away, filtered through layers of cotton, growing fainter with each passing moment. Your vision has already gone, your eyes open but seeing nothing, the visual cortex of your brain no longer processing input. Your sense of touch is gone, your body a distant thing that no longer reports its a break time equal sign, 1500 ms. Your breathing changes, becoming irregular and shallow. This is Cheyne-Stokes respiration, a pattern common in dying patients where breathing alternates between rapid gasps and long pauses. Each pause seems like it might be the last, your chest still, no air moving, and then suddenly another gasping breath, your body's autonomic systems fighting to continue even as higher brain functions shut down. The pauses grow longer, the breaths more shallow, the pattern more irregular. Your brain, starved of oxygen, is losing its ability to coordinate even this most basic function. In one of your last moments of clarity, you think about the vast gulf between the medieval world and the modern one you left behind. Every comfort you ever took for granted, the clean water flowing from taps, the antibiotics available at any pharmacy, the heated homes and soft beds and abundant food, all of these represent centuries of human progress. Countless people worked and died to create the world you knew, to develop the technologies and systems that made life bearable, that separated humans from the brutal reality of existence in the natural world. You never appreciated these gifts because you never knew their absence. You complained about minor inconveniences while living in unprecedented comfort and safety. The gratitude you feel now you ever visited, every clean glass of water you ever drank. Gratitude for the invisible infrastructure that supported your life, the water treatment plants, the electrical grid, the supply chains that brought food from around the world to your local store, gratitude for the rule of law that protected you from arbitrary violence, for the social safety nets that prevented you from starving, for the medical knowledge that could have saved you if only you had access to it. All of these things which seemed ordinary and unremarkable in your previous life now reveal themselves as miracles, as gifts beyond price. Your heart is failing now, the rhythm becoming more chaotic, the contractions weaker and less effective. You can feel it in your chest, not pain anymore, just a fluttering sensation, like a bird trapped behind your ribs, beating its wings more and more slowly. Your blood pressure has dropped to almost nothing, your brain receiving barely enough blood to maintain consciousness. The world is fading, sounds becoming distant, thoughts fragmenting into disconnected pieces that no longer form coherent patterns. In your final moments, you're not thinking about the grand questions of existence or the meaning of life. You're thinking about simple things, mundane comforts that you'll never experience again. The feeling of clean sheets against your skin, the taste of fresh water, 900 ms. These simple pleasures which you experienced every day without thought or appreciation now seem like the most precious things in the universe. Your heart beats one last time, a weak, irregular contraction that barely moves blood through your vessels. Then it pauses, the muscle exhausted, beyond recovery, unable to continue its work. It tries once more, a feeble flutter, and then stops completely. Your brain, receiving no blood flow, has perhaps 10 seconds of consciousness remaining as the oxygen in your neurons is consumed. These final seconds stretch out, time becoming elastic, each moment containing infinities. The darkness rises, not frightening anymore, just inevitable. Your last coherent thought is one of profound gratitude, not for the life you're losing, but for the life you had, for the comfort and safety and ease that you never properly appreciated until it was gone. You understand now, in these final moments, how fragile human life is, how dependent on technology and infrastructure and the accumulated knowledge of centuries. You understand how lucky you were, how every day of your modern life was a gift that billions of humans throughout history would have seen as impossible magic. And then, nothing. The electrochemical processes that created your consciousness cease. The neurons that held your memories, your personality, your sense of self-ness. Your body remains a cooling mass of tissue that will soon begin to decompose, but the person you were is gone, as completely and finally as if you had never existed. The peasants wake with the dawn to find you dead. They're not surprised. They could see you were dying, could smell the infection, could hear your labored breathing throughout the night. They check to make sure you're truly gone, then begin the practical business of disposal. The bedding you died on will be burned. Your body will be wrapped in rough cloth and buried in the village cemetery, in a shallow grave that will be unmarked and forgotten within a generation. Your few possessions, the clothes you wore, will be burned as well to prevent the spread of disease. The priest will be summoned to say prayers over your grave, though you're already buried by the time he arrives. The peasant family will return to their daily labor. The fields still need harvesting. The animals still need tending. Life continuing for those who survive. Within days, you'll be forgotten. Within weeks, it will be as if you never existed. The medieval world will continue its brutal cycle, indifferent to your suffering, uncaring about your death, unchanged